So we're going to be talking about, from many sources, we're going to be talking about specifically containers. The general topic of containers, but in all different ways. First of all, the Chofetz Chaim speaks about how Ammon and Moab were forever excluded from the ranks of the Jewish people because they failed to bring food and drink to the Jews as they wandered through the wilderness. So they broke the container forever. This dire proclamation came about only because they lacked courtesy. The Jews were not even in need of food or drink, for Hashem satisfied all their needs. In the Talmud, in Keaubos 111b, the sages in number 17 convey that there's a great mitzvah to show one's white teeth to the poor person. It's a greater mitzvah than to feed him milk. So they, in Bava Basra 9b, we learn more about this. If a person gives charity to the poor, it brings 6 blessings. If a person gives an encouraging smile to the poor, it brings 11 blessings. If you are, and in other words, these are sort of like, let's use the smile to say friendliness, and let's use the encouraging smile to be about reassurance, providing them with like a bolstering their self-esteem, versus just giving them some money. So Rabbi Jacobson, we take this further and we say a container from the Lubavitcher Rebbe he talks from about psychedelics. So it's not the proper way to attain mystical inspiration, even if it had such a property. The Jewish way is to go from strength to strength, not by means of drugs or other artificial stimulants, and to utilize one's natural capacities. When this is done truly and fully, I don't think there'll be a need to look for artificial stimulants. Regarding medicinal use, the Rebbe writes that these drugs have a place only if it's necessary for the physical health, in accordance with the mitzvah to take care of one's health, the commandment. Only by a doctor was given permission to heal. When it comes to shidduch, matchmaking priorities, we have to look for someone who has yer shemaim, which means awe of heaven, even when they're alone. Trust, midos tovos, which means good measures, like good traits, and a commitment to build a life and a family on the values and foundations of Torah and mitzvos, as illuminated by Chassidus. Regarding social media, Rabbi Jacobson brings down teachings from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, where the Lubavitcher Rebbe spoke against television being in the home. He compared it to bringing a church in the home. Parents must do all they can which is involving idol worship. Parents must do all they can to ensure that their children are exposed to Kedusha. And Torah, Kedusha means holiness, right? And Torah-based influences, and protect their children from inappropriate content. Obviously, the same applies to today's social media and other secular platforms, because when children are exposed to these platforms and technology in general, it can teach the Rebbe's lesson that the power of technology was created by Hashem to honor Him by spreading goodness, kindness, using it for disseminating Torah and mitzvos, like schools use computers and tablets as educational tools. Before we move on to the container of marriage with Rabbi Doniel Schonbach, who's also who's going to be our next source, I want to share how I was taking a Kabbalah class from Kabbalah of New York, and the Kabbalah Center of New York, and we talked about the container of Creator, Israel, and Torah. So she said, like, how are you in your container? So working on the Creator container, I made a lot of progress on the Israel container, and Torah is my nature. That's an easy container for me. So let's go on. So we see here, like, basically the three. So we're talking here about all different types of containers. Rabbi Doniel Schonbach on marriage, he says, "Thou shalt not," like as if it's commandments, blame, insult, judge one another, because it damages the relationship and causes unneeded stress to the marriage. No one likes being criticized, blamed, belittled, especially in marriage where your close daily contact necessitates a high level of sensitivity and understanding. Insinuating or embarrassing each other will deplete emotional savings account, and if the overall tone in conversation is angry, critical, confrontational, probably you could look at it that you're transgressing the other person. Thou shalt, like commandments, deepen your understanding of your spouse's inner world enhance fondness and admiration, spend quality time together, accept each other's influence, positive and nurturing behavior, caring and empathetic words, find the good in each other, affirmative and encouraging words, and growing closer each day, compassionately and friendly, friendly, growing closer and friendlier. Couples, he says, should arouse a love for each other and think about the importance of the relationship before speaking. Having the right inner message, I love you, care about you, I want to deepen our relationship, may be the best guide in evaluating whether what I'm about to say will push the spouse away or bring them closer. He says 6 points. 1, soften the approach. Be less confrontational. Use tender tones so the other feels secure. Avoid criticism. No connection when you're tearing the other person down. 2, validate. 3, listen. 4, show understanding. 4, show understanding from their point of view and communicate as a common ground. Like, for example, this is our problem. 5, be willing to compromise. And 6, give your spouse attention, affection, like I'm here, I'm not leaving, pointing out the positive changes your spouse has made in your life. And now we're moving on to a bigger picture. On the Mayim Achronim website, Efraim Palvanov has and also on YouTube. He has a lot of teachings, and you can find his teachings on YouTube as well. He talks about something called cosmic Shemitah. We have a lot of sources from here. So, in Bahar B'Chukosai, one of the parshas, one of the portions of the Torah, Hashem says to Moshe on Har Sinai, the Mount Sinai, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you enter the land that I give you, the land shall observe a sabbatical to God. This is from Leviticus, Vayikra, chapter 25, 1 and 2. The Holy Land must be worked for 6 years and then left fallow in the 7th year, the sabbatical year, the Shemitah year, and after 7 cycles, the 50th year is the Great Yovel, the Jubilee. Rabbi Batya ben Ashar says, Kabbalistically, it's the 7th millennium of eternal rest, the world to come, following the resurrection, and it's 7 times 7,000, so that's 49,000 years, after which the cosmos will return to what we call null and void, or the formless void. In Hebrew, it's called tohu bevohu, like in Genesis, Bereishis. Raphael Shuchat says the first mention of this idea is in the second book of Enoch, Chanoch, because this is the second temple era. They have the apocryphal writings, because in the book of Enoch it says that Hashem showed Enoch the entire 7,000 year span, and each day is a millennium. So then the 8th day will be the first of a newly created week, and it thus revolves in a cycle of 7,000, which is from 2 Enoch 33. The Zohar similarly says there's a civilization span of 7,000 years. That's written Zohar 3:9b, and also briefly mentioned in the Talmud, Rosh Hashanah 31a and Sanhedrin 97a. Another opinion that the sabbatical is not 1,000 years but 2,000 years, because there's a different opinion. Because likely when the 7th of the 7th Shemitahs occur, it's followed by a 50th, which is a Yovel, a Jubilee. So in other words, the 2,000 rest years at the end of the cycle. So you have 6 years where the land is worked, and the 7th year it's not. But then after every 7 times 7, there's a second year, which is called a Jubilee. So it says that the 7 of the 7 is actually 2,000 years. So, and then Nachmanides, another scholar, describes the cycle as 50,000 years, as the secret of Nun Shari Bina, 50 gates of understanding. And because of, instead of 49,000 years, 50,000 years, because the Jubilee, the Yovel. When the sages say that God revealed to Moses all 50 gates except the last one, that's from the Talmud, Rosh Hashanah 21b, it means God showed Moses nearly the entire span, 49,000, except the final 50th Jubilee millennium. Also, the Sefer Shemina, which is one of the oldest Kabbalistic texts, agrees that it's connected to the 50 gates and posits that we're in the second Shemitah now. There was a previous civilization, and each of the spheros, the midos, the attributes, the divine 7, attributes, not the spheres of the mochin, the intellect. So this is like what we call the emotional ones, the measures. They each correspond to the 7,000 cycles. Thus, the previous cycle was chesed, or kindness, or might even call it positivity. And we're now in the, or expansion maybe, like, because positivity means it keeps being more possible. So it, so what did we, and so now we're in the second one. It would be gvura. The second one is gvura, and it's called severity or judgment. We would say it's like boundaries or constriction, and like the kindness is also about connecting. So boundaries are separating, but it's not bad. I mean, you could say that you could give everyone, if you're, like they say, a jack of all trades, you're a master of none. So if you want to be a master, you have to have boundaries. Say no to everything else. You say yes to one. Just ideas. Anyway, why the world we know is so difficult, why there's, people might, I'm not saying it is difficult. I'm saying there are some people who say we must be in the second cycle of Gvur because they feel that the world is so difficult, full of evil and suffering. Plus, the Kabbalists explain that the Torah manifests itself differently in each of the Shemitas. So this is the one, this time the Torah manifests, it's through laws, restrictions, din, basically judgment, punishments, halacha, which is like rules and stuff. It takes primacy in our reality versus like agada, which is a softer, more characteristic of chesed, kind of the speaking, the teachings of like more speech, like the oral Torah in other ways. And not the oral Torah in other ways, but like the halacha, which came out from the oral Torah, ends up being, let's say, we would say more harsh, versus agada, which is softer. So some sources even say the Torah is the same in each Shemitah, with the exact same set of letters, except they're rearranged, which is interesting. Tiferes Yisrael, who's Rabbi Yisrael Lefshitz, says we're in the fourth Shemitah, that this is the second Shemitah of human life, though. So there has been 4 Shemitas, 2 of them have had human life, including this one. And that's why there's the Beis in the first letter of the Torah, Bereishis, in the beginning. It's secretly indicating, and it actually is written with 4 crowns on them, to encode, it's the 4th overall Shemitah, which is why the scientists found on ancient fossils and archaeological remains remnants of past civilizations from the previous Shemitas or sabbaticals. And and this is the secret of why our sage in Chagiga 13, the Talmud in Chagiga 13b to 14a, and Shabbat 80ab. So our sages say there was 974 generations before Adam. So that's a lot of people that came before Adam, but these are the generations of past Shmitas. Another opinion from Rabbi Aryeh, Kaplan's preferred choice, because it follows a calculation that matches the scientific estimates, which he says is the way that we should look at it, is that we're in the 7th Shemitah now. And he sources in his book Immortality, Resurrection, and the Age of the Universe, he says that there were already 42,000 years before Adam was created, putting us in Malchut, which is like the feminine, the receiving, the zero, right? The zero that comes after the 1. So when you have a 0 before a 1, we don't even talk about it. When you have a 0 after 1, then we say, it's something, but it's an empty, lowly, with no light of its own. It receives everything. So let's say you have a 0 before a 1, you wouldn't even mention it. It's a nothing. But if you have a 0 after 1, it now makes the 1. Everything that 1 has becomes more because there's a 0 after it, right? So instead of just 1, it's a 10. You add another 0, you have 100. So the 0 becomes very important. So anyway, the Arizal opposes this, and the Ramak. They held that the earlier generations were simply misunderstood, which is many of the ones that we just talked about: Sefer Chanoch, Enoch, Sefer Tzmuna, Ibn Ezra, Rabeinu Bacheya, Ramban, Talmudic sages, Midrash. One of the Midrash examples, which we didn't mention, was Kohelet Rabbah 3:11, and the Zohar. We talked about one source, but here's another source in 3:61a and b. It says that the souls of this world existed in previous worlds. Here we go, right? Previous worlds. There's been many major Rishonim, or like original thinkers, and fundamental ancient texts. So that's from him. And I do believe we should stop there, and we will continue tomorrow with more interesting topics. All the best. Bye.